Don Johnson joins us from NWS up in Reno, hopefully to give us some good news for the upcoming season.
I guess it depends on what your definition of good is, right?
Yeah. All right, take it away.
All right. Thanks for having me, you guys. I am sorry I could not be there in person today. I actually am headed down to Mammoth in 4 days. So if this was only a few days later, I could have been there. But I was not able to make the trip today, so I am doing it actually from home. And a lot of you I know have worked with Zach in the past. Zach is no longer at our office anymore. Brittany Whitlam is actually our new aviation program leader. She is actually in Florida right now, though. I'm going to have her contact information at the end, though. You're welcome to contact me or her. I've actually taken over Chris Smallcomb's position if anyone worked with him in the past. So feel free to reach out. My contact info is all up there. I have been in the Reno office. Actually, this week I'm coming up on 14 years here and 20 years in the agency overall. So our last winter was a doozy. we after 16-17, I don't know how many of you were around for 16-17, but that was what we all kind of thought, okay, this is a once in a career winter for us. Mother Nature was like, hold my drink. I got 22, 23 on tap for you. And it was just a whole different variety of extreme. It was cold constantly. We had storm after storm after storm. Snow loads were causing buildings to collapse. Some photos up here showing you, perspective on how much snow Mammoth itself saw. The Eastern Sierra was just hammered. My kids, that's actually the three of them building a snowman there on the bottom left. And hopefully you don't hear them. They're actually all at home right now. So I'm hoping you don't have to hear them in the background. But right now they're 9 and my twins are 7. And they had a blast with it. They were loving all the snow. But then we got into spring, and even in Reno, it was still snowing in May. And at this point, all of us were like, oh, it's snowing again. Great. We were kind of done with it by the time we got that far in the season. And admittedly, being in the Eastern Sierra, you are all a lot more accustomed to longer winters than I think we are here up in town. But I know it was even extreme for there because we were looking at, and then here, lightning strikes as well. We got into spring and we just had thunderstorm days, which exacerbated some of our flood problems as well. That was a wonderful photo out of June ski area. But we got into record territory. We were riding near or above record levels all winter long. So our previous record snow water equivalent for the Eastern Sierra was in that purple shading, with the purple line actually being the top. And our last winter is actually showing up now in the black line. So you can see that we had multiple instances, first after the beginning of the year, and then again once we got into March, where we were exceeding all-time records for the amount of snow water equivalent we had in the Eastern Sierra. Incredible winter. And a reason for that, we had a lot of atmospheric rivers. This is actually showing the entire water year, which is October 1st through September 30th, and the number of atmospheric rivers that made landfall along the West Coast. And you can see there were quite a few that were right into the region. Now, 16-17 is a natural comparison because that really was the winter of atmospheric rivers, and you can see here even more of them. So then to top everything off, we got into the end of the summer and Hurricane Hillary remnants came along. I sure as heck did not have it on my bingo card that I was going to be on calls with the National Hurricane Center in landlocked Nevada. It was a whole different ballgame for us. We knew that overall, as you went north, the impacts were going to be less. Mono County was kind of on that in between, though. Mono Inyo is where that definitive line was, and I know that Mono really escaped a lot of the problems as this came north, but Inyo got hit quite hard and had a lot of road damage in through there. And you can see some of these rainfall totals just south of the region. We're in the 4 to 8 inch range in places that don't normally get all that much rainfall. So things like this occurred where an entire hillside came down on Mount Charleston. So where did that leave us at the end of after all of winter and spring and summer were really wet? Well, we just can see that we were record wettest to top 10th percentile for almost the entire water year. And it completely eradicated the drought, which is what we like to see. We like seeing a lot of white across our state and into California as well. Compare that to last year going into the winter where we had a lot of D2 to even D4 drought across the area. So moving on to this year, what might we see? Well, every single year we hear about El Nino and La Nina, right? In a typical El Nino winter, the jet stream is actually amplified and it's driven farther south. So we tend to see more storms going into Southern California, Arizona, and maybe like the tip of Southern Nevada. Um, Being in the Eastern Sierra, Mammoth is far enough south that sometimes there's a bit of an influence, but it's really right on the edge there. Now, you go into a La Nina winter, however, and you have typically the jet streams much more variable. We see wetter conditions to the north, drier to the south. Interestingly enough, last winter was a weak La Nina, and so was the winter of 16-17, and I believe 2011 as well, when we had that big winter for 2011. I can't bring up El Nino without thinking about Chris Farley's skits back in the late 90s. So if anybody was a Saturday Night Live watcher in the late 90s, you probably remember his I Am the Nino. Well, we are looking at El Nino developing right now. We're already in a moderate El Nino. We are forecast to be in the moderate to strong range throughout the winter months, with a 30% chance of actually rivaling some of the strongest El Ninos that we've had on record. Interesting thing with this El Nino, though, is that it has formed earlier in the season than what we have seen in the past. And we're actually seeing the warmer ocean waters more in the central equatorial Pacific, whereas in previous ones, we've actually seen them off the coast of South America. I wish I could tell you what that means, but we actually have no analog years to even compare this to. So we're going to kind of go off of analogs, looking at more moderate to strong El Ninos and how that compares. So we constantly are hearing El Nino, oh my gosh, we're going to flood. It's going to be the biggest winter ever. If anyone remembers the Godzilla El Nino of 15-16, I can't even tell you how many rumors we were putting out left and right with people saying, it's going to flood, everything's going to be covered. And we actually ended up it was one of the closest to normal. It was like normal to slightly above normal, but the closest we have been in ages. And if we look at our scatter plots, I circled in the red where you can see what El Nino winters bring us in the Eastern Sierra and also into kind of Northwest Nevada as well. But the top left one for you, it's going to be showing there your scatter plot for including the portions of the Eastern Sierra. And we can see that it's almost like flinging paint at a wall. We really don't have any definitive correlations between the years where we've had El Nino conditions. We've had dry winters, we've had wet winters. So we're going to break this down a little bit further. I'm not sure how large the screen is there, so I'm hoping everybody can see this. But basically, the top row, we're looking at strong El Ninos. This is every El Nino since 1950 mapped up here. So the top row is strong. The next two are moderate. The bottom three are weak. So let's mainly focus on the moderate to strong, because that is what we're looking at as we go into this winter. Well, in the strong ones, our general patterns have been for near to above normal for precipitation. Temperature-wise, it's kind of gone in both directions, honestly. Going into moderate, well, this is where it gets a little more murky. We have had really cold winters. We've had really warm winters. We've had really wet winters. We've had really dry winters. So not a lot of correlation in the moderate. So how else can we break this down? Well, Brian Bretschneider, who is a climatologist out of the state of Alaska, has made these maps looking at average snowfall in moderate to strong El Nino events. And it's a little bit zoomed out at this point, but if you kind of look into your neck of the woods, you can see that generally speaking, near to above normal snowfall is anticipated in moderate to strong events. Same thing when we look at the count of above normal snow winters. Once again, near to slightly above normal for the amount of snow days or snow winters during moderate to strong El Ninos. I pulled this a little closer and it's a little fuzzy because I had to take a large map, crop it, and then make it blow up a little bit. So apologies for that. But this is now looking at El Nino winters, 59 to 2023, and versus the climatological average of 91 to 2020. Showing how much more or less snowfall we get on average during these El Nino events. And we're once again seeing near to just a bit above normal. So that's kind of where I'd be hedging my bets right now. I went ahead and pulled some data looking at rapid transitions from La Nina to El Nino conditions like what we just experienced. I found 5 analog years going back to 1950. And unfortunately, once again, we have seen all over the map between very dry and very wet. So that really didn't give me a clear signal on anything. We can take a look at climatology maps. So now we're looking into the core of winter, looking at the December, January, February timeframe here. And anything showing up in the greens and the blues is actually hinting at wetter than normal conditions for that time frame. And anything in those reds and oranges are hinting at drier than normal conditions. It's a lot to take in, so let's overlay it together. We're going to make an ensemble approach here. And what's showing up yet again? Near to slightly above normal for that time frame. So I kind of see a theme showing up here. The Climate Prediction Center does do official projections out for 3-month periods, and for the November, December, January, fairly equal chances. Going into December, January, February, they're actually leaning above normal for precipitation. And the reason for that, if you look at their discussion, is a lot of what I was showing you with those climatology maps and the actual data pointing in the direction of near to slightly above normal conditions. However, they even admit that there's not a strong signal, and because we have not seen an El Nino like this in the past, we don't have analogs to go off of. And remember that we sometimes don't always see things directly correlate, even though we have similar conditions in place. And big grain of salt, because this is what we had last year going into the winter, with below normal precip and above normal temperatures. And we know that sure as heck didn't happen. So I kind of jokingly say that I have a very official Dawn's tire forecast, because it seems to me that anytime I get new tires on my vehicle, we have dry winters for like the next 2 or 3 years, mainly because I have really good tread at that point. So that's my, I'm thinking it's just Mother Nature's way of spiting me. Now, last winter, I went in and got my tires rotated in the fall, and it was like one of those things right about 5/32 left on my tire, which is not quite where you have to change it, but you're kind of getting into that yellow zone. And I was like, okay, our winters are never that bad. I'm not going to worry about it. And sure enough, we had the winter to end all winters, and I went ahead and changed them in the middle of the season, yet it didn't seem to stop anything. So I'm kind of curious if my record with getting new tires is going to play a role into this winter. So what does all this mean? Well, right now, anything's on the table at this point. But if I had to hedge my bets, I live in Reno, we're a gambling state, right? If I had to hedge my bets, I would lean near to just above normal for snowfall amounts. And especially because there tends to be a little bit stronger of a signal for above normal as we go farther south. So that Eastern Sierra, where the Eastern Sierra Avalanche Center covers, would fall into that region. So same logic is going to apply to our snowpack on our water supply outlook. Right now, we're heading into this winter in a really good spot. We are, like I said, eradicated the drought. We have nice amounts of soil moisture and everything else, but we know if we can get into long dry stretches. If anyone remembers January of 22, where not a drop of water fell from the sky during one of our wettest typical months, that's going to change things pretty fast. Flooding is not as likely in these patterns. It doesn't mean we haven't seen high flows from snowmelt, but as far as large spikes on area rivers, we have not seen it as much in El Nino winters as we have in weak La Nina winters. But that being said, our ground is starting wetter, and most of the reservoirs are a lot fuller because of last winter. So we're going to be seeing a lot more runoff from any storms that do occur than what we might have otherwise seen. Even if we have a drier than normal winter, we still can have floods. We can still see cold spells, inside sliders, that rare Tonopah low, like what we had seen over New Year's there, and even windstorms. Large wildfires right now are not a big concern, but it's, again, mainly because the larger fuels are still fairly wet. The grasses took off like crazy this year. That always seems to happen after we have a big winter. We see a large grass crop, and after that dries out, the smaller fires can carry, and we are seeing a little bit of that. So we want to basically change the way people are thinking about forecasts. It used to be very deterministic. We would give you a value on what was going to happen. But our ultimate value on a weather forecast isn't did we nail the temperature? It's did we give you enough information to make an accurate decision? I have to be honest. I don't actually care if the temperature is 72 versus 75 because it does not make a difference in your day. Where we are going to see differences are amounts of snowfall, our wind speed thresholds, where we have the snow level, the rain snow line, if we are crossing that freezing threshold. So these are like some key areas where we can help you with decisions. So everyone thinks, oh my gosh, wintertime in the Sierra, it's going to be gorgeous, right? This is the expectation. And then they try to drive up here in a winter storm, and then the reality sets in. It's a mess. It's whiteout conditions. It's 12-hour long delays. It's people running out of fuel on the side of the highways. And we get so many phone calls in our office, can you open up the highway? Can you tell me if I need chains? Can you, all this stuff. And we're like, yes, please. I want to actually tell people to carry brains and not chains because, you have to be smart driving in the mountains in these conditions. We actually monitor a lot of the stuff out of the CHP pages. And here's an example of somebody not making a good decision. Driver is out of truck with flip-flops and refuses to chain up. Clearly, they were not prepared, or maybe they just didn't care. I don't know. But we want to try to help people make better decisions with all this stuff. So the old way we would used to think about the forecast is we would compare different models. Anybody who has been around for a long time might remember us talking about the American model versus the European model, maybe versus the Canadian model or the Japanese model. There's so many different forecast models out there. But how do we make a good decision with it? Do we just go with our gut? I can guarantee you that my gut isn't necessarily going to verify. My gut might be saying, hey, I want some fresh snow because I'm going to go up and go skiing. And so I want the storm to happen. Or my gut might say, you know what? I really want it to be dry because I have to do a drive across the Sierra. We don't want to use that. We want to go with something that's actually going to be calibrated, these blended scenarios. So we're actually blending our models together, finding ensemble approaches, and then giving you statistical information based on this, looking at reasonable upper and lower bounds. So we would use scenarios, confidence, and probability to convey these to you. So with a scenario, we'll give you what the official forecast is, but then we can also give you what the worst case scenario might be. When it comes to confidence, if I'm telling you I have high confidence that the mountains are going to be picking up 3 feet of snow versus, I don't know, it might snow a couple inches, you're going to make a much different decision with how you go about your day. For probabilities, what weather thresholds are important to you and how likely is it that that will occur? So here's an example of scenarios. So let's say we're looking at Mammoth Lakes here. We're looking at the underperform, where there's a 75% chance of getting at least 18 inches of snow. The overperform, where now there's a 25% chance we could reach 28 inches of snow. Generally speaking, the official forecast will fall in between these ranges. Then we also give you the oh my, where everything lines up perfectly, or I guess not so perfectly, depending on how you want to look at it. And that's a 10% chance of occurring. This is going to focus a little bit more on Western Nevada, and I apologize for that, but it's just an example. But does having additional information like this help? So we give you an official forecast map of snowfall. But what if we can then break it down and say, here's your probabilities of getting these various amounts? Anybody who's been on our email list has probably seen we've really been going in this direction over the past few years because we want to give you the full spectrum of possibilities, reasonable possibilities. I don't want to be like 0 to 6 feet because that's not going to do anything for you, but give you a reasonable range of probabilities so that you can help make better decisions off of it. Another example here, this is with winds. So we have the official wind forecast on the left, and then we have on the table the timing, the confidence levels, and then the probability of wind gusts exceeding 60 miles per hour. Because, every now and then it gets a little windy around here, right? In terms of predictability, the longer range predictability is going to be general trends. So 7 to 14 days out, we can tell you usually that it's leaning wetter or leaning drier, leaning warmer or leaning cooler. The example that I'm showing here is a monster atmospheric river that actually did occur. And we were seeing signals like this 2 weeks in advance of it happening. When we get a little closer in, 2 to 5 days out, we're now able to tell you more. Are we looking at flood concerns? Are we looking at heavy snow concerns? Are we looking at more wind? These are the types of scenarios we're going to start being able to dial the details in on at that point. And then the really small scale features, which are going to be like snow squalls, lake effect snow bands, rapid snow level drops. That's going to be more on the 6 to 24-hour range with, a little bit of allowance, possibly going out to 48 hours because our high resolution models are actually getting significantly better than they used to be. As far as our watches, warnings, and advisories, we will issue a watch if we have 50% confidence in something occurring, whereas a warning or an advisory, we're going to have 80% confidence. A watch might be anywhere from 3 to 7 days in advance. A warning might be anything from 2 to 4 days in advance. A warning is going to be more life or property threatening, whereas an advisory is going to be more of a nuisance, and you're probably not going to get yourself into trouble unless you do something kind of stupid. Another way to look at it, because who doesn't like tacos, is the taco watch. We have the ingredients to make tacos. Whereas a taco warning, tacos are together and we're eating right now. Now, in terms of avalanche and winter specific support, we just recently, was it last year, I believe? Maybe the year before, I'm trying to remember. But we started doing avalanche discussions within our forecaster discussion during periods of active weather. And this does break down things such as our snow ratios, the snowfall rates, how much we're anticipating overall, what we are thinking in terms of the winds, and how things might change as we go through the storm. We do work with both the Sierra Avalanche Center and the Eastern Sierra Avalanche Center to disseminate watches and warnings. We have a specific product known as the SAG, the Snow Avalanche Guidance. It is a backcountry region-specific forecast that is issued twice a day. And looking at it a little bit more carefully here, you can actually see how we will break down elevations. For Mono itself, we're looking at the 8 to 10,000 foot range and then the above 10,000 foot range. And we will give you your winds at mid-slope in addition to winds at ridge level. We will look at the snow accumulation, and if we go wrong, what direction we might go wrong in. So we'll say, hey, I have a 90% confidence in getting this amount, but if we go wrong, there's a 10% chance, and we'll give you a second value on there as well. And then you can see the liquid amount that's associated with it. And with those avalanche warnings, we will disseminate everything through social media, through our website, weather radio, and it also go to our broadcast media partners as well. But that's all in collaboration with the Eastern Sierra Avalanche Center and the Sierra Avalanche Center. There is a new avalanche page. Basically, weather.gov/rev/avalanche would be for our side on Mono County. And then the other website there is going to be for Las Vegas's area. Las Vegas actually handles Inyo County. So apologies, I know there's these imaginary lines that everyone has to know, but that they don't. Either way, they're both there. And what's really cool is you're able to get tabular forecasts for specific sites. So you can do a drop-down menu, choose a location, and then get your tabular forecast for that location. In addition, it will show any watches or warnings that are in effect. And we also have a graphical forecast as well on that page. So a lot of information can be found between that page, our avalanche guidance, backcountry recreation forecast, and also reading the discussion itself. In terms of you staying prepared, I highly recommend, again, that discussion will tell you so much because it's the only place that as meteorologists, we can put a free stream of thought into things. We can tell you why we are forecasting what we're forecasting, and it really helps to bridge what you are seeing out on our website. We do the freakout briefings. If you are not signed up, it is admittedly just for those who are in public safety roles. So I can't put anybody on the list, but if you are somehow related to public safety, I can in fact get you signed up for that. And we basically break down the week ahead as a broad scale view and then zoom into the details where the forecast is important, where it matters. If you are on social media, we have both a Facebook page and a Twitter/X or whatever the heck it's being called now at NWS Reno. We're very active on both of those. Again, for those who are in public safety roles, there's Interactive NWS. It's a way to sign up online. You can Google search it. You sign up, register for it, you specify what locations you're interested in and what warning types you're interested in, and it will alert you quite literally within 2 seconds of me hitting send in the office of any of these warnings that are in effect. It can, I believe, email you or text you. They both work. You are welcome to call us 24/7. We are always in the office. And mobile.weather.gov is a great way to use our information as well, because we don't actually have an official app as an agency. I know that's so, 2000, right? There's a new way to interact with us as well. And this again is for public safety partners. So if you are in a public safety role, you are welcome to register for this. If you are not, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to approve it. But it's an easy way to interact with us in the office. The registration link is shown right there. And other offices in the local area also all have their own pages. It is powered by Slack. You can use it on a desktop or you can use it on a mobile device as well. And we love it if you can send us photos or reports or whatever of what you're seeing, because it helps keep us informed of what's going on. Plus, we make sure to post things that are for significant weather there as well. So with that, any questions? You have my contact information up there. And then as I mentioned, Brittany is our new Avalanche program lead, and that is her information as well.